Welcome to the Future of Tourism podcast. I'm David Peacock.
Stop owning your own content.
Young leaders are stepping up.
Bring everyone to the table
and imagine their world anew.
In 2020, Elisa Mameli was fresh out of her master's in tourism and working as a brand ambassador in Sardinia. Today, Elisa lives in Portsmouth in the UK. She's a PhD candidate doing her thesis on phygital tourism. At her advisor's suggestion, Elisa approached Richard Veal, managing director at Simpleview Europe, to review her submission for her doctoral thesis. He saw a solid proposal with the opportunity for valuable industry insights into the intersection of physical, digital, and inclusive tourism in a world at the time just starting to feel the crush of COVID-19. What we might have thought was 8 or 10 years away in 2020, in the phygital realm, in the AR realm, in the esports realm, is already here, and we need some roadmaps. Good day, Elisa. How are you?
Hello.
Where are you? What's it like?
Hello, David. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm currently in Liverpool. I'm not in Portsmouth, and today is a rainy day, unfortunately, but it's a good day.
It's really nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again as well.
All right. The other day, you were talking about what started you on this journey, and I just want to frame that before we go into some of the specifics of what phygital is and some of its applications and benefits. But you said when you were redundant, you were enjoyed being a brand ambassador in Sardinia. It was great, and then you were redundant, and you sat there thinking. You said, "I want to understand how tourism destinations can become more resilient through smart technologies." Was that the beginning of this?
Yes, kind of. So I was working as a brand ambassador, but also for a tour operator. And we know what happened in March 2020 in Europe and across the globe, and I was made redundant. And the months were continuing, we were in lockdown, and it made me think like what I want to do next when we could start travel again and job as well. And I realized that I wanted to still continue in tourism, and I wanted to provide a contribution to tourism to come back as it was. And one of the subjects during my master was about smart tourism and technologies, and this is why I come with the questions of seeing like how tourism destinations were using virtual reality, Zoom, Teams, and all these new technologies that before we didn't think they were possible to use. And that's why I thought to contact my now supervisor, Professor Caroline Scars. I talked to her about the topic, and she threw me these questions as I started the journey, which was, do you know the term phygital? And I was like, no, never heard of it. Tell me more about it. And then she explained a little bit the broad terms about phygital, which is simply the combination of the terms physical and digital, which comes phygital. And then together we develop a research proposal to get the funding and yes.
Okay, so the beginning of it, I really like the simplicity of that statement. How can destinations become more resilient through smart or information communication technologies? Let's stick a pin in that because I want to come back to it. Let's actually define phygital here because it's a bit of a gray curtain for most of us. You've been working in it for now a few years, but let's go to that. You were starting to explain it, but let's explain what is phygital.
So really the term phygital refers to the merging of the blend, if you prefer, of physical and digital elements to create innovative, engaging, and immersive human-centered experiences. It is an approach that aims to combine, I'd like to say, the best of both worlds. So you place emotions of the core of the experiences, of the tourism experiences case, while still leveraging the advantages of technology. So technologies become as a tool for enhancing these experiences.
So when I looked around and researched this before we talked, I see a very heavy preponderance of the fact that a lot of the phygital work that's being sort of profiled and paid attention to right now is in retail. Is that the case? See, retail seems to be jumping ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I think what I noticed in my research that retail has been the pioneer, so the first sector that's experimenting with digital experiences and solutions. But since, and also here I'm linking why it is important, well, due to the advent of COVID-19, we see an accelerated shift of digital consumptions, but not only in retail, because of course, retail due to lockdown, people couldn't go to physical shoppings. And then during COVID, we realized these new technologies and people of every generation age started to become familiar with these new solutions and also more open to interact with it, so willingness. But at the same time, we lack the human connection and emotions of meeting people. And what makes, in my opinion, tourism industry so special are the people, the emotions, and the cultures that they all connect together. But at the same time, we discover this world of new technologies and what they can bring us, and we don't want to give up. And so it's back to that phygital become so important and popular because it can provide new experiences.
So, and when we talk about phygital, we're not talking about, Skylab kind of experiences. We've been living in a world of phygital until now, and it's very sort of innocuous. You experience it, you don't know it. So we've been using AR a lot on cell phones to explain things, to highlight where things are. I think of, Google Photos and how we use them to identify things. In the retail space, people like Nike are using them to enhance the consumer experience so that they can, as I understood their example, try on things, try on colors, go into a shop. But it's very interesting. In almost all the cases, the retail example, the physical experience and the digital experience have this goal of tying themselves back together in place at some point in time.
It's totally true. Particularly, they focus on one of the principles of digital experiences, especially in retail, is to combine both the functional but the human aspects of the emotional aspect. But I think one of the key differences between retail and tourism is that in retail, but also in hospitality, if you think about self-service checkout, for example, is to provide a more functional service and faster service and more personalized as well. Instead, in examples that I noticed in tourism and hospitality, there is also more entertainment and educational aspect of it. So the idea of using digital experiences or augmented reality or QR code as well to also this add of layer of educational for the experience.
So one of your peers in all this work is a fellow named Ben Switzer. I know you don't work with him, but you work on similar things. He walked us through an example a year ago on the Banting House in London, which is a national historic site for the discovery of insulin. And it was a COVID sort of situation that accelerated the work there. They were able to create a world where you stood outside the house and you held up your phone, but you looked through the walls and it was annotated. Is that a phygital experience?
I would say yes, definitely, because it provides this layer of information and the augmented reality side.
Well, very good. Can you think of one other great example in tourism or retail that you like to share when you're talking about phygital?
Well, I can think about an example of tourism in my last trip in South Korea.
Go ahead.
So I came, so they have developed, they opened in November 2022, and they completely revolutionized their tourist information center, French destination, which they call it hiker ground, which they define it as a playground for tourists. So imagine a 5-story building where the tourist information itself, so where people can actually ask information, is at the 5th floor. In the other floors, tourists can experience different sides of Korean tourism. For example, you have a floor dedicated to K-pop and music, where they use extended reality to, for example, you can be your like K-pop star, you can decide your own background, your own music, you can record, which is also appealing for Generation Z and who creates content like on TikTok or Instagram Reel according to your age. And then they have on another floor virtual reality experiences dedicated to K-drama and Netflix, which like Squid Game and Netflix contributed a lot to the increase of tourism in South Korea in particular. And then they have another floor, which was dedicated to wellness and tourism, because they are very particular, and it was called the cave, which combined different elements and degree of phygital. They had a room with a big screen and with this soundscape and 360-degree music that recalls, tranquility and relax, and you can touch different flowers, plants, and also smell rocks. These rocks each rocks were representative to a specific destination. And then you had the super technological side, where there was the T test. So you could do a personality test, and according to personality, you could try a specific Korean tea. And then you have the super, artificial intelligence skin test, brain test, and so on. So just to give you an idea how digital could be such a versatile tool.
Wow, that's not your usual TIC experience, is it? Not at all.
Yeah, I think I was shocked as well. Like, how could they think something like this?
Well, and I got to say, same thing. I was a guest at the World Competitiveness Forum a year and a half ago. Dr. Peter Lee from Goyang invited me, and he took us to the Hyundai Museum. And I mean, what an interesting manifestation of their ideas about technology. When you walk to the front door, you were faced with a wall of rods that look like steel rods hanging down in a matrix, deep and wide. And you're thinking, how do I get in? But the AI that tracks you when you come in begins to move the rods out of the way in whichever direction you step, so you can navigate your way to the desk on the far side. It's just, I'm not surprised that your TIC experience is so astounding in Korea, because it totally blew me away. Those are the really high end sort of sexy applications. You also come to this though along the way. You started with that whole idea of the resiliency of tourism, but somewhere along the way, you really worked into your ethos, and especially into your thesis, this idea about providing not only immersive experiences, but experiences that are very importantly accessible and engaging. Do you want to talk about the accessible piece? Because I think there's a massive potential on so many fronts, and I see you already starting to work in those areas. We're not necessarily talking about being on site or off site, but we're talking about accessible and engaging experiences. What do you want to talk about there?
Well, I'm at the beginning of my journey in terms of accessibility, but I think what I mean about accessibility is not only in terms of physical accessibility, or how technology can cater different needs, for example, through audio recognition, speech recognition, audio recognition, movement, or just simply the idea to design a space where people could move freely without any limitations. But also, what I noticed that the cost of digital experiences. So, how much do you want to ask for paid digital experiences? Because right now we are living in a period of crisis, if you want to say that. So it's also, I was having the other day a conversation with a participant for an interview where they developed an augmented reality app, and for them was the importance of the idea to provide a free app that people could easily use, family as well in particular. So important that it is an experience that it could be suitable for different ages as well. So for family, kids, and so on. So that's, I think, what is a part of accessibility. And when we met the first time for the Simple View Summit in Milwaukee, I had the opportunity to listen to one of the panels dedicated to accessibility. And one of the persons that was there was I hope I'm pronouncing right, Mayan Z. She is the CEO of Access Maya, yes.
Yeah.
And I think what she said very key things that really resonate with what I would like in terms of digital, that accessibility don't have to be like a checkbox exercise, so a tick box, and also that every person could benefit for accessibility. For example, I have the privilege to not have any disability or physical in this point now, and so at the end, it could benefit someone else, it could benefit for me as well. And she made the examples of subtitles, for examples of the subtitles,
like subtitles, yes,
or the translation. For example, for me, I'm not a native speaker, and
Right.
so for me, it could benefit for me as well. So I think these are important keys for phygital as well.
Well, and I think when you talk about it, I'm struck with the importance of the fact that phygital isn't content. It cannot be reduced to, hey, phygital stuff's content. Neither can esports, neither can AR or AI. There's a design process in there that's very intentional and very human focused. And so it's not surprising to see accessibility come back into the picture. And especially, recent experience, I went to Pompeii. What a magnificent place, like truly magnificent. Um, uh, Relatively inaccessible when you look at how it's laid out. I mean, they've done a magnificent job of making it accessible to standards, but not in the same way you and I think about it when we walk around. That place is a maze. You can go anywhere. A phygital experience in Pompeii doesn't just serve the consumer who can't get there or serve the consumer who may be limited in mobility, but it serves Pompeii because the question also is, what about the resilience of that place? So as you start to look at resilience in tourism, we're not simply looking at great content that is, uh, financially effective at getting people in. We're actually looking at designing new systems, aren't we?
Yes, exactly, definitely. And also, I think another examples that I want to think about resilience is about the trending use of QR code recently. Something that, funny enough, I didn't know that it was invented in 1992, and we are only starting to using in 2020, and how it could be.
They were reborn in the pandemic. It's absolutely, we literally didn't, no one could create a use case scenario that was so ubiquitous until we didn't want to touch things, and that really shifted things again. But there's an old, yeah, it's a very old technology that's come back, and now it's so useful just in the sense of not printing menus in restaurants. You think about the amount of paper it saved. Like, what a phenomenon. But before COVID, we couldn't do that. No way.
Exactly. And this is linked to resilience in a way, because what I noticed that digital experiences can be used not only in so when the tourists are there, they can be used also in the pre-travel phase and for marketing, for example. One of the digital experiences that I noticed most that also been implemented by small-sized destinations is the use of audio trails in gardens, for example, in parks, and QR code allows to. It's important to think about what content to put in QR code. You have the text, but also the audio side, and also this helps to increase accessibility. But people before the travel can have access to the audio trace and the QR code. So this is helps as well to resilience, in my opinion, because people have access to the content before, but they will always have access to the content, and then they can experience the QR code of the audio trail or whatsoever when they are in the destination. And this can also help to kind of give a sense of, how to say, I would say attachment to the place, because I think also in terms of resilience, when we talk about is the collaboration with the local community, which I think is really important because the content can be created by the local community or local businesses as well. They can enhance the collaboration.
Okay, so let's talk very briefly and directly about your thesis. What is your actual thesis title?
So right now, my actual thesis title is Digital Future in Tourism.
Okay, and give us a little bit of a sneak peek. How far out is it, and what's it going to talk about?
Well, my form of thesis is called PhD by publication. So the aim is to write 3 papers out of it. And the aim is to tackle different research questions and topics. In the first part, the aim is to develop a framework that tourism destinations can possibly use as a toolbox for designing digital experiences. Then the other part of my paper is to understand the tourist perspective and opinion on digital tourism and understand what can help to increase engagement and satisfaction. And then the idea is to combine all this data and understand how small destinations or other destinations can, for example, took examples from other destinations and also themselves design and implement digital tourism. So that's the overarching goal.
Okay, and the second phase of that, the research piece with the consumer, you're just starting that up now, aren't you?
Yes. I'm continuing. Yes.
Very good. Okay, so in there is a process. So I love it. You look at phygital tourism. You set the table as to what it is, and then you look at the intersection with the demands and challenges to destination organizations. You look at the consumer's preferences and desires, and you sum it up. So when we look at ICTs, information communication technologies, and I've started to talk about it all under that heading, because whether it's AR or AI or phygital or even simple use of existing messaging technologies, it can sometimes seem really overwhelming. And I find us as leaders and intellectuals sometimes sitting around arguing the technologies of the AIs and the technologies of the phygital things. But when I talk here on the Future of Tourism with leaders who I respect, Jeanette Rush out of NYC and Co., who talks about the pragmatic use of AI, Joe Venito and Ben Switzer talking about immersive experiences that could be developed in market and then augmented with technologies, or Ed Tomasi, how esports is a culture, not a thing. They all start at the same place. They all start with the end vision in mind and working backwards, whether it's storytelling or organizing or automating. They come to this simple perspective. What do you need this to do for you? And then when people throw their hands up and say, I don't know, then they point them to their mission. They say, what's your mission? What's your vision? What are you trying to achieve? And that's where I really got attracted to that opening statement you made about the idea of this technologies, ICT technologies, all of them contributing to the resilience of destinations. So as you're going through this, you're meeting destinations around the world. You've now been to Korea, add that to your list. What are you learning about destination organizations and their awareness and approach to this, and any advice there? Because that's who you're talking to right now, destination organizations, hundreds of them from around the world.
So the idea, just to repeat, is how they could pragmatically use phygital experiences for resilience?
It is, or whatever challenges you see there, or things you've noticed along the way. You're an outsider looking in. That's always a welcome perspective.
Well, definitely starting from the challenges, what I noticed is that phygital is a constantly evolving landscape. So we are in a very early stage, especially in research. There is still not right now a very clear definition. We know that it is this merge of physical and digital to create experiences, but also thanks to the new technologies is always coming. So I think that's one of the challenges, is constantly evolving, and also definitely in terms of skills. So we require people that have the technical and maintenance knowledge to use these technologies, but also the content that needs up to date. So what are you providing? It needs to be constantly refreshed, and of course, pointing about accessibility and resilience and so on. But I think, of course, one of the biggest challenges is about the implementation cost and funding as well for implementing digital experiences. But the good thing is that digital experiences are really versatile in that sense. And and of course, it is important to think about, okay, what I want to achieve. In my research, I noticed that there are usually digital experiences can be categorized in 5 types. Usually it can be informational, transactional, entertaining, and supportive, which is come to retail. But I noticed that in tourism, they have more the educational side. So they could be educational. And of course, these types, they can be combined together, and it can help to understand, okay, what do I want to achieve with these digital experiences? And then, of course, thinking about the elements that you want to combine. What physical elements? I want to, for example, enhance the multisensorial aspect, the personalization, and so on. And then thinking about what technology could be used. Digital experiences could start basically with the use of QR codes or audio trail. Or I think another one is about, have you ever heard of Spotify codes?
Go ahead, no.
Spotify, so usually imagine is what you can do with Spotify. If, for example, you have, in this case, a podcast or a specifically playlist, rather than showing the usual QR code, Spotify creates a special code that you can use, for example, and it directly links to the Spotify playlist or podcast according to what you use. I think it was one of the recent ones that I've seen that it was really interesting. And then for there is the idea to have a kind of a holistic approach, so as a whole, and the idea to have a co-design and participate all together to create these experiences. Right now, I'm in a phase of the research where we are understanding how to design these phygital experiences, and what can I see? It's the use of design thinking approaches, and how to like in the co-design, how different stakeholders can collaborate at the same time.
Okay, and that's really important. You automatically go to co-design and stakeholder engagement. I mean, again, I'm going to use Ben Switzer as an example with the work he's doing in Canada. He never is the genesis of the content. He is a facilitator, bringing content and ideas together with communications and other parties. I've got there's this gut sense that the work we do in Phygital is partner based. It has to be partner based because I mean, otherwise we're doing the entire lift on production and all of those things, and that's where a DMO gets really worried and says, "Wow, we don't have budget for all those things." But you are seeing in the examples around the world, and so am I, that when these things start, they become partnerships with people who want to share and work with you on their immersive experience and bringing other partners to the table. So this is another chance to build those networks of stakeholders and tell stories, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And also another example that I would like to talk about, this is in London. It's called the Gunpowder Plot immersive experience. And I had the opportunity to talk to the CEO of Gunpowder Plot. And when he was talking to me about how they started to create the Gunpowder Plot, he mentioned people from kind of all different sectors, and you could not see like the multidisciplinary approach, which is something that I noticed in my research
the
as well.
Gunpowder Plot.
Yes.
Like the Gunpowder Plot to blow up the Parliament buildings, or what?
It's dedicated to that event. Yes, exactly.
The fellow named Guy Fawkes.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so when I was, as I said, when I was asking to him how was the design process and the implementation, he told me that he didn't not only work with historians, people from the London Tourism Board, and so on, but he worked as well with experts in olfactology, or like these elements that you don't think about. And this shows how the holistic approach and the multidisciplinary approach that could bring an opportunities to Phygital.
That's a fantastic example. All right. Let me see. If people do want to hear you talk, I do know this, that on Thursday, September 12th, from 1:30 to 2 p.m. at the Europe, Middle East, and Asia Summit in Bristol, at the Watershed Cinema, you will be speaking as part of the Simple View Summit there.
Yes.
Okay. I would love to come and listen to you talk more. We'll also put some links to your work and your LinkedIn work so people can follow you on LinkedIn.
Sure.
All right. As we bump up on time here, anything else you want to share with the people who are listening? You've been in this world for a while now. You set your sights on working in tourism. You graduated with your master's and we're very happy being a brand ambassador. You made me quite aware of that. But you're onto this new realm. So what do you want to share with your peers in tourism? Because they are your peers.
In which sense?
Just
Sorry,
closing words. Something really, portentous and carnally. Just the best statement. I'm joking. Well, it's your last. It's as we close this out, a chance to tell people. Think about things. How do they get started? Because this is a really tough one. Phygital is like AI. It's actually kind of daunting to think about it. But there must be a starting point. And the starting point is about a conversation. It's about more than one person in your organization. And maybe the starting point is literally, riffing off, okay, we know what Phygital is. Does it have any place here in the next year, in the next 5, in the next 10? And I mean, eventually they're going to bump up against, of course it does. And at least they can start thinking backwards from that point and start integrating.
I think when we think about Phygital, we don't have to miss what is the core, which are the people and the emotion itself. And another point that I would like to do is especially how without people, Phygital doesn't exist. Technology is just a tool that is used to enhance the experiences. And another point that I found in notice is how especially in museums or in other attractions, how staff members are key to the phygital experience because they provide the bridge to the physical and the digital, and they enhance the sense of authenticity and the sense of emotion. So when we talk about technology, we have to think about first the human and after the technology.
I think that's really, really well said. And I know you know this story, but our friends over at European Cities Marketing, City DNA, had a knowledge group called TICs that over the course of the last 2 years has reinvented itself as the visitor experience knowledge group based on exactly what you said, which is all of their learnings. It's not about a bricks and mortar place handing out pamphlets. All of their learnings are crucial to how we go forward, especially in enabled communication environments with technology. Right. It's been great to have you. Looking forward to hearing or seeing you in September. Thanks for being here, Elisa.
Thank you for having me, David.